Hello, my name is Eric Shear, and the sport I chose was Formula One. Let's start with the origin of the sport. The formula in Formula One refers to a set of rules to which all participants and cars must comply. There were plans to start Formula One in the late 1930s, but thanks to World War II, those plans were put to a stop. The first race took place in 1950 at Silverstone Racetrack in Great Britain. There was an estimated 120,000 people that attended the race, and King George VI was also in attendance. Before we get further into things, I'm going to show you the progression of cars from 1950 to now. Alright, the basic concept of Formula One and the rules. So the basic concept of Formula One is to come in first place out of all the drivers, just like any other driving or racing event. Race order is found by qualifying. There are 3 qualifying sessions, and whoever gets first in the last qualifying session starts the race in first. So the qualifying sessions start by, in qualifying 1, all 20 drivers are racing. The 5 slowest lap times of that, they get knocked out. So then qualifying 2, there's only 15 drivers, and the next 5 slowest in qualifying 2 that don't make it, they get kicked out. And then in qualifying 3, there's the final 10 drivers, and whoever has the fastest lap starts on pole. All drivers must pit at least one time in the race and use 2 different tire compounds. There's a total of 5 different tire compounds: soft, medium, hard, intermediate, and wet. They make you use 2 different tire compounds because drivers would always just use a soft because the soft is the fastest tire compound that drivers can use. And there are 10 constructors or teams, and each team has 2 drivers. To the right is the scoring for F1. So if you come in first place, you earn 25 points. And so does you also earn 25 points for the team. At the end of the year, whatever driver has the most points wins the championship, and then whatever team has the most points wins the Constructors' Championship. Here are all the teams and drivers for the 2019 season. Now, some of these have changed because drivers are allowed to change during the season. And for example, Pierre Gasly on Red Bull got dropped down to Toro Rosso, and Alex Albon got bumped up to Red Bull. So the governing bodies of the sport, that would be the FIA. The FIA governs all types of racing, but the F1 is the most popular. They decide all the rules and regulations that the teams must comply to, and if they don't, the teams will be fined or disqualified from the racing. They also promote safe, sustainable, and accessible mobility for all road users across the world. Where do they race in Formula One? In 2019, they raced in 21 countries. It is by far the most popular in Europe, As you can see on the map on the right, basically all of Europe is covered in F1 symbols. Italy has hosted the most Grand Prix, followed by Germany, the United Kingdom, and then the US. And then the map on the bottom right is the darker the green, the more Grand Prix that have been there. So Italy is the darkest, and then you can see like Russia is very light, and they've only had a few. F1 has hosted 31 different countries since it started racing in 1950. Participation around the world. In 2018, over 4 million people attended the races. The Canadian Grand Prix had the most visitors, and that had 360,000. And the Azerbaijan Grand Prix had a 130% increase in attendance in 2018. And here's a picture on the right of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. They actually raced through the capital in Baku, right through the city streets. The main events, I would say Formula One doesn't have a final championship race, kind of like the NFL or NBA would have the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. So I would say their most popular race is the Monaco Grand Prix, which is in the top picture. As you can see, there's hundreds of boats there that are just millionaire zone, and that's probably why Monaco is the most famous, just because all of the millionaires, that's their favorite location, and that's kind of what F1 is known for. It's known for all of the money that they have, and you'll see this later with the sponsors that they have. They just have so much money. Silverstone and Monza are also very popular races because Monza is in Italy, and that's the home of Ferrari, and Ferrari is probably the biggest F1 team. And then Silverstone is where it started, and that's where it has one of the biggest followings. In the United States, they race at the Circuit of the Americas, which is in Austin, Texas. And in 2021, they're planning on having an event in Miami, but as of now, they aren't for sure if it's going to be ready by then or not. Media coverage. The two major broadcasters for Formula One are Sky Sports and Channel 4. Both of those are European channels. So in the United States, what you have to do is ESPN owns the broadcasting rights in the US, but they use the Sky Sports feed. So you get all the Sky Sports broadcasters and cameras and stuff like that, and ESPN just copies their broadcast. Or you can go on the Formula One website and subscribe to them, and then you can watch all of the races that way. Sponsorships. So Formula One has a ton of different sponsors. The Formula One has sponsors, and then the teams also have their own sponsors. So Ferrari could have different sponsors than Formula One, and Ferrari also has different sponsors compared to like Mercedes and Red Bull. As I said earlier, Formula One is all about the money. The more money a team has, the better they will be. Recently, the top three teams of Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull have been the best because they have the best sponsors and they spend the most money. In 2021, though, their Formula One is basically creating a cap that teams will only be allowed to spend $175 million, compared to now where Ferrari spends $450 million, compared to a lower team like Williams that only spends $150 to $200 million a season. The main sponsors in F1 are DHL. They deal with all like the logistics and moving from race to race because they travel the world, and one weekend they could be in Asia, and then the next weekend they could be in Australia racing. Pirelli supplies all the tires for the teams, so all the cars are all different, but the tires are all the same. And then companies like Emirates and Rolex are also sponsors because they just want to attract people with money. Licensed product. F1 has merchandise for every team. You can go on the F1 website and get shirts, hats, jackets, accessories, whatever you're looking for. That's basically all their licensed product. Those are my sources, and that was my presentation. Look forward to listening to all of yours, and I hope you guys have a great break.